I won't go into too much detail in this one because, well, we'll let the video tell you about itself anyway. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this festive video. Festive sailing, Christmas on board the RMS Olympic. Christmas is the busiest time of the year, and just like on land, it gets busy at sea. Out of all the busy times due to schools on break and families deciding to take a holiday or vacation, Christmas and New Year holiday cruises are often the most expensive cruises to book throughout the year, and some cruises would have to be booked 24 months in advance. And like the modern cruises we have today, shipping companies have been hosting Christmas celebrations for nearly 2 centuries. But what were the origins of the festivities, and what would Christmas be like on board an ocean liner? This Christmas Day, we will be answering these questions by looking into the history of the White Star Line and imagining what they would have been like on board the Titanic's sister ship, the RMS Olympic. Before we start the video, we need to look back at the history of Christmas with the White Star Line. Ocean travel began with the foundation of the Cunard Line in 1840, but it wasn't until a decade later when the line began serving Christmas feasts for first-class passengers, or saloon class as it was called at the time. Third-class passengers had to bring their own food and cutlery on board ocean liners until the Hamburg American Line ocean liner, the SS Moldlik, and I'm sorry if I butchered the name, where it is believed that cooks made the first fresh soups and bread on board. When the RMS Olympic II had her maiden voyage in September 1899, her galleys and pastries would have been fitted out with the latest kitchen equipment supplied by Henry Wilson & Co. Limited. It is known that some of the galley equipment would have been fitted out with an apparatus that would cook or roast food. This included the stoves that would have cooked eggs, meats, and soups, and boiled tea. When she had her first Christmas on the sea, it was likely that the Oceanics galley would have served passengers traditional mince pies, pastries, and cakes. But depending on the shipping line, like the White Star Line, the Oceanic and other ships would feature selections of traditional music feasts common or origin. The food would have been served on Christmas Day or during the Christmas period would either be hot or cold, mainly cold due to the exposure of the cold winter air as the foods had to be carried through multiple decks from the galleys to the dining saloons. When it came to the early to mid-20th centuries, White Star had extended their meals including Christmas. The evidence for this comes from surviving menus from 1900, 1911 and 1920. The first menu printed on Christmas Day 1900 comes from the SS Afrique from the White Star Line's South Africa and Australia line, and again I apologise if I butchered the name. Although it isn't clear which class the menu came from, however, the food that was served would likely be for first-class passengers. The ink on the menu has faded over the years, however, it shows that the SS Afrique on Christmas Day 1900 had served 11 courses. The words that are clear to read and show the items that were served on board were oxtail soup, which is meat slices from a cow's tail, which would have been fried, boiled potatoes, various vegetables, fried shallots, and dried black mushrooms, boiled cod with parsley sauce, goose with apple sauce, rabbit pie, roast mutton, carved leg pork, a joint from a pig covered in brown sugar, garlic butter, vinegar, salt and pepper, which would have been slowly cooked between 2 to 4 hours, basting every 20 minutes, and Christmas pudding. In 1911, the RMS Olympic sailed on her first Christmas voyage. A surviving first-class menu from that year, not dated but maybe printed on Christmas Day, mentions a 6-course meal which include meals like baked apples, stewed prunes, cornflakes, kippered herrings, grilled ham and sausage, omelettes, jacket potatoes, Vienna and Graham rolls, vanilla buns, buckwheat cakes, and watercress. Whether the Christmas menus would have been breakfast or big lunches, the same could be said for the RMS Titanic. If she had survived instead of sinking on her maiden voyage, the Titanic would have sailed from Southampton on the 18th of December and would have arrived in New York on Christmas Day 1912. In 1920, a passenger named George Charles Bristol saved a second-class Christmas menu when he sailed on the RMS Olympic in December 1920 from Southampton to New York City. Although it isn't dated, the menu features these courses: oxtail soup, sirloin of beef with Yorkshire pudding, roast gosling with applesauce, green or dried corn, turnip puree, which would have either been creamy or buttered, which would have been added with potatoes, rosemary and garlic, browned and boiled potatoes, plum pudding, mince pies and fruit, before ending the meal with coffee. The first-class menu, which also survived, contains the same items. When it came to the stewards, also from 1920, they would have had their private menu and they would be treated to 6 courses. However, we cannot determine what they would have, whether they had shared some of the meals like the passengers or not. When it came to the decorations, the Olympic would have been decorated in things festive green, a collection of flowers and ornaments. Although there's little information on the Olympics' Christmas decorations, there is an account from a monthly newsletter for the Cunard line called the Cunarder from December 1921. In the article, writer Charles Welton describes the decorations on board the RMS Aquitania. With the coming of dawn, the saloons blossomed with bright holly and festoons of green. One wonders where the decorations could have come from. It is not at all uncommon to see stately spruces, symbols of the day, introduced into the setting, a provision thoughtfully planned before the ship cast loose from the deck. Hung with an amazing variety of trinkets, draped with threads of giving forth reflections of frost, and brightened with a myriad of multiple coloured bulbs, they have their places on every deck. Along with the decorations, there was entertainment and religious services. Along with the traditional Sunday services on board, there would have been religious services that would have been held in the first-class saloon, and first-class services would have been led by several captains who were in charge of the Olympic. However, before the 1930s, there was discrimination towards the Catholics, and ocean liners wouldn't recognise Catholic religious services, even on Christmas Day. So if a Catholic priest was on board, he would have been sailing on board as a passenger, and for that reason they had to arrange a formal mass themselves. The masses would be often held in the second or third class facilities. However, by 1934, which would be the ship's last full year at sea, temporary spaces were provided for Catholic passengers. This would mostly be held in all 3 class saloons, where a panel would fold back to reveal an altar where each mass service would be performed, whether they be Anglican or Catholic. For the Christmas entertainment on board the Olympic and other ships, amateur orchestras would have played carols or other popular songs following breakfast. This would later be followed by comedy and talent shows involving passengers, stewards, and engineers. After the main lunch, the orchestras would then hold a formal concert, and first and second class passengers would donate money to passengers in third class. Before the RMS Olympic had her retirement, the White Star Line decided to offer passengers a dedicated Christmas and New Year voyage, which would last on board the SS Homeric for 16 nights on a special Mediterranean cruise. This decision was made as passengers were no longer spending Christmas at sea out of necessity. The White Star managed to continue the cruise by popular demand until the company was bankrupt and began working alongside the Cunard Line. While the White Star Line no longer exists, most shipping companies continue Christmas cruises every festive holiday from November and December.
Hey everybody, Dustin here. We would like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas from all of us from History Inside a Nutshell, and a very Happy New Year to everyone as well. We cannot wait to see you guys in 2024.